could there be a possibility, or maybe you even know this based on research, that there is another planet with people that look like us humans, that there's water, there's people that are building similar stuff to us? Is there any chance that that could also exist?
Yes, I think it's very likely. In fact, one of the species that we had a contact with looked very similar to humans. And this is also in the documentary. It was an ET that appeared in the desert at Joshua Tree National Park with our team. And a person right beside me took a photograph of this being, and he actually looks very similar to a human with a receding hairline. And the information we got from him was that he was from the Andromeda galaxy, which is about 2.5 million light years from Earth, which is a twin galaxy to the Milky Way. It's a spiral galaxy.
How many miles away?
2.5 million light years.
So he has like the ultimate Uber to get on and figure out a way to get over here.
Yeah, but here's the thing to remember. If you're not dealing with linear, distance doesn't matter if you're dealing with a non-local teleportation and communication system. So distance only matters when you're locked into the linear box of space-time. When your technologies are advanced enough, what happens is that an entire spacecraft, that it'd be enormous, can actually resonantly shift into what some people call another dimension, another field of energy, bypass linear space-time and reappear or rematerialize in another point. And that's actually how they're happening. Now, if you look at the science behind, there have been particle teleportation experiences of that physicists and experiments, but we're talking doing this on a macro level with an entire spacecraft and everyone on board it. But again, we're dealing with civilizations that are 10 to the 6th to 10 to the 9th years, 100,000 to millions of years more developed than we are. And if you were to go back, I think part of this is human hubris, that we think that we're at the apex of technology. If you were to go back, down the road from where I'm sitting here is Thomas Jefferson's home. So if I were to go back in time and show Thomas Jefferson my smartphone, well, you might be burned at the stake as a witch. It would look like magic. So almost anything we have today, if you showed that to someone from 2,000 years ago, the time of the birth of Christ, you'd be lucky if you weren't burned as a witch or a sorcerer. It would look like magic. Now let's extrapolate where we've come just in the last 100 or 200 years of the technological industrial revolution. Let's extrapolate out 100,000, 200,000, 1 million, 10 million, 1 billion years. So in a universe that's at least 13 to 15 billion years old, it's a certainty that there are civilizations that are that many orders of magnitude more developed than we are. And so I think this is gets back to this importance of scientific empiricism, observation of facts, because what we have happen, it happens in society all the time. If someone observes something that doesn't conform with the paradigm, they are pilloried and they are thrown out of society. I'll give you an example. Right here at the University of Virginia some years ago, a brilliant doctor discovered that there was a type of bacterium that was responsible for a lot of the worst bleeding ulcers in stomachs. But because that ran against the medical paradigm of it all being cause of acid and this and that, he had to leave America and ended up in Australia. Now, if you don't test, if you have a patient with a bleeding ulcer and you don't test for this bacterium, because if it's there, it's easily treated with doxycycline. If you don't test for that, it's medical malpractice. But his life was ruined and his reputation was ruined because he dare speak the heresy of an observed fact that ran against scientific orthodoxy. And what I'm saying to the public is the facts on this issue are there. They have to be recognized as facts. Maybe if you could come to a different conclusion than I have, but as Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan said, Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but not their own set of facts. So the facts that we need to deal with empirically as observed phenomenon have to be accounted for. Now, if our scientific paradigm doesn't quite account for all the strange things that are observed, it doesn't mean it's not legitimate. It just means our science is very early. We're only in the first couple hundred years of any real level of scientific rigor. And so there needs to be some degree of humility on the part of humans about the fact that we are sort of one half of one step out of the jungle as a species, but we're already dealing with advanced civilizations that are several orders of magnitude past where we are. And that's okay. I mean, this is how civilizations evolve.
What are your thoughts about Area 51?
Well, that's a grid name. So the actual proper name is the Nevada Test Range, Nellis Air Force Base. And to be specific, in what the pop culture calls Area 51, nobody in my circle calls it that. The key names are S3, S4, S9, S12, Groom Lake, Pahut Mesa. So there are two parts of that operation. The ones that there's part of it that is the energy transfer part, where they are studying retrieved extraterrestrial vehicles that we have, when we have these, and studying how they operate, all the different systems. And then there's another part of it where they are building up human, let's call it reverse engineered, as close as we can get, versions of those. So there are two sets of operations. There are almost no contact between the people in the DUM, the deep underground military base, where the ET craft are held, that are working on the other. There's sort of a firewall, but things are transferred, but the people working on the one are not just going back and forth. I know men who've worked on both. I also know the Air Force Office of Special Investigations officer who investigated one of these objects we were test flying that was actually an ET object, but we couldn't figure out the energy system properly. So we put on a portable nuclear power plant on it that unfortunately had a malfunction, and it went down over the outskirts of Houston and irradiated a lot of civilians there. And this is called the Cash Landrum case, if you want to Google it. And this man came forward a couple years ago and confirmed that those were actually 4 human pilots trying to get this ET object to operate, but they had this power source on it that had a malfunction that unfortunately radiated the people below. And of course, the military denied knowledge of it. And in fact, the people who were approached by both the media and the public, the injured parties actually sued the US government, and it got tossed out because the government said we have no knowledge of that. But the truth is, the ones who were being asked did have no knowledge. That's the nature of a highly compartmented, unacknowledged special access project. But that craft that malfunctioned over outside Houston, I would believe it was in the early 80s, that was from the Nellis Range, from the part that had the study group that was working on the ET object. Now, there are other facilities that are actually much more important than that one. Outside of Salt Lake City, outside Provo, there's something called the Dugway Proving Grounds. And there's a very large underground facility there that my team members have been to. There's an underground facility at Edwards Air Force Base and up in the high desert of California and near Palmdale and Lancaster, and the Lockheed Skunk Works. And the really key facilities there are all also underground. And, so we know where a number of these facilities are. Over the years, I've developed relationships, as I mentioned, with hundreds of people who worked and are currently working in those facilities who give us information.
Talking about Area 51, S3, S12, the place you talk about in Provo, outside of Provo, what is in there? Like, are they holding UFOs or extraterrestrial aliens maybe? Are they holding them hostage? What is in there? If somebody was able to sneak in there, what are we going to see?
Well,
you have 980 whistleblowers. I'm curious, somebody's probably giving you information on that.
Oh yeah, a lot. The facilities have ET craft that are stored. The bodies, most of the folks did not survive the downing of the object and retrieval. Those are stored. They're autopsied and then stored. I know a man at Fort Huachuca in Arizona, which is Army Intelligence Headquarters, and out from that base underground is a facility where there are 9 different ET craft that over the years have been retrieved, and a number of bodies that are stored there.
Living? Are they living aliens?
No, they're all dead. No, they're all dead. They're all dead. Yeah.
So we don't have any living aliens at any of our locations that you know of.
If there are any currently, I don't know about it. I do know that one that lived and survived after the so-called Roswell event, which actually did happen, but it's not what you think. It's not what you've been told. But one of them did live at least until 1951. And I have an Army intelligence officer who actually saw that being in a cage in near Camp Peary, near Williamsburg, Virginia, not too far from where I am. I understand that particular being died not long after.